Hitting off.
ಅಲ್ಲ ಅವ್ರು ಮಾತಾಡೋದು ವಾಯ್ಸ್ ಕೇಳಿಸ್ಬೇಕು ಕಟ್ಟಿದ್ರು ಸರಿ ಫ್ಯಾನ್ ಮಾಡಿ ಇಲ್ವಾ ಓ ಫುಲ್ ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ಇದು ಮೈಕ್ ಆಫ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ರು ಈಗ ಬನ್ನಿ ಮೇಡಮ್ ಸರ್ ಅದಲ್ಲ
A warm good evening to one and all. We begin this auspicious occasion with gratitude to the Almighty, whose blessings guide us towards knowledge, wisdom, and excellence in all our endeavors. On behalf of our institution, it is my privilege to extend a warm welcome to our respected management, principal, HOD, and staff and all the dignitaries present here today. Your vision and support provide the foundation for academic initiatives for this kind of FDP. A warm welcome to all the participants, research scholars, and students joining us with this AICT ATAL Faculty Development Program on advanced computing paradigms, bridging AI, high-performance computing, and data-driven technologies. Your enthusiasm and commitment to advancing your knowledge are the driving forces behind the success of this program. Now, let us remember with the gratitude to the Almighty the inaugural ceremony.
ವಿಡಿಯೋ
ಬರ್ತಿದೆ ಸೌಂಡ್ ಬರ್ತಿದೆ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ Thank you, sir. Now I request our students, Sanvi and Varsha, to invite the invocation song.
जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश पाहि मां जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश रक्ष मां मुदाकरात् मोदकं सदा विमुक्तिसाधकं कलाधरावतंसकं विलासि लोकरक्षकम् अनायकैकनायकं विनाशिदेव दैत्यकं नताशुभाशुनाशकं नमामि तं विनायकम् जय गणेश पाहि मां जय गणेश रक्ष माम् न ते तरातिभीकरं न मोदितार्कभास्वरं नमः सुरारिनिर्जरं नतादिकापदुत्तरम् सुरेश्वरं निधीश्वरं गजेश्वरं गणेश्वरं महेश्वरं तमाश्रये परात्परं निरन्तरम् जय गणेश पाहि मां जय गणेश रक्ष माम् समस्तलोकशङ्करं निरस्तदैत्यकुञ्जरं दरेदरोदरं वरं वरेव वक्त्रमक्षरम् कृपाकरं क्षमाकरं मुदाकरं यशस्करं नमस्करोमि भास्वरम् जय गणेश पाहि मां जय गणेश रक्ष माम् अकिञ्चनातिभाजनं चिरन्तनोक्तिभाजनं पुरारिपूर्वनन्दनं सुरारिगर्भचर्वणम् प्रपञ्चनाशभीषणं धनञ्जयादिभूषणं कपोलदानवारणं भजे पुराणवारणम् जय गणेश पाहि मां जय गणेश रक्ष माम् महागणेश पञ्चरत्नमादरेण योर्महं गायति प्रभायते हृदि स्मरं गणेश्वरम् जय गणेश पाहि मां जय गणेश जय गणेश जय गणेश रक्ष माम् जय गणेश रक्ष माम्.
Thank you, Sanvi and Varsha. Now I request our beloved principal sir to address the participants.
Good evening, everyone. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to this AICTE ATAL sponsored 6-day faculty development program on advanced computing paradigms, bridging AI, HPC, and data-driven technologies, organized by the Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Kalpataru Institute of Technology, Tiptur. At the outset, I would like to extend my warm greetings to our resource persons from the reputed institutions and industries, the participants from across the country, HOD, faculty, colleagues, and students who have come together for this academic endeavor. This FTP holds great significance in today's era of digital transformation. Artificial intelligence, high-performance computing, and data-driven technologies are not just academic topics. They form backbone of innovation in science, engineering, and industry. The integration of these domains opens tremendous possibilities in research, automation, and decision making. AICTE ATAL initiative have always been at the forefront of empowering faculty with the latest technological advancements. And I am delighted that our institution has been chosen to host this program. Such FDPs foster collaboration, knowledge sharing, and capacity building among educators and researchers. I take this opportunity to appreciate coordinator, co-coordinator, and entire organizing team for their dedicated efforts in planning and conducting this online FDP seamlessly. I also thank AICTE ATAL for their continued support and trust in our institution. I am confident that this 6-day FDP will be enriching experience for all participants, providing valuable insights, interactive sessions, and hands-on exposure to advanced computational technologies. Once again, I welcome you all and wish this FDP a grand success. Thank you and best wishes to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your insightful words. Now, I request our HOD madam to address the participants.
Good evening, all. It's an immense pleasure to Kalpataru Institute of Technology that the AICTE FDP of 6 days, organized by Department of Computer Science and Engineering, Kalpataru Institute of Technology. I request all the participants to utilize completely the resources and the full guidelines and the complete resource that is given to be utilized by the participants, take a maximum benefit of the people by participating in the FDP. I request all the participants to be 6 days to have an FDP. It's by AICTE ATAL, sponsored by AICTE ATAL. So thanks to coordinator, co-coordinator, and staff of Department of Computer Science and Engineering for
Thank you, ma'am. This 6-day FTP scheduled from October 13th to October 18th, 2025, aims to provide in-depth understanding of high-performance computing. Participants will explore advanced computational techniques, tools, and applications that are transforming research, industry, and innovation. The program is designed to enhance skills, promotes collaborative learning, and inspire participants to implement these technologies in their academic and professional pursuits. I encourage all the participants to actively engage in discussions, asking queries, and share your experiences. Once again, I extend my heartfelt welcome to each one of you. May this program be enlightening, inspiring, and rewarding. I look forward to see fruitful interactions, innovative ideas, and strong collaborations over the next 6 days. Thank you. Dear participants, in another few minutes, session will start.
someone will let you in ಅಂತ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆ, ಸೊ ಯಾರಾದ್ರೂ ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕು.
ಅಕ್ಸೆಪ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೇಕಾ?
ಸಿಸ್ಟಮ್. Hi everyone, a very good evening. Is my voice audible?
Supreeth, ಇಲ್ಲ okay ಇದೆಯಾ? You can share the screen.
Okay, so let me try sharing the screen.
ಮೈಸೂರು ಅವ್ರ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟರ್ ಮಾತಾಡ್ತಾರೆ.
Please let me know if you can see the screen.
ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟರ್ ಯಾರು
ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಶೇರ್ ಆಗ್ತಿದ್ಯಾ?
ಸರ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟರ್ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ. ಸರ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟರ್ ಈಗಾಯ್ತು. ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟರ್ ಆಗ್ತಿರ್ಲಿಲ್ಲ, ಈಗಾಯ್ತು ಸರ್.
Hello. Is my screen visible? Hello. Ma'am, is my screen visible?
ಇಲ್ಲ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟರ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಬೇಕು. ಈ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟರ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಹೋಮ್ ಸ್ಕ್ರೀನ್ ಪ್ರೆಸೆಂಟರ್
Now can we get started?
Dear participants, let's start our day one session. I'm very much delighted to introduce our first resource person, Mr. Supreeth Angadi, which is a distinguished professional in the field of cloud computing and artificial intelligence. His current role is GenAI ML Startup Solutions Architect at Amazon Web Services, Bengaluru. Supreet sir specializes in assisting startups with the adoption and implementation of generative AI and machine learning solutions on Amazon Web Services. He is recognized as a subject matter expert in AI, ML, and serverless computing. His work involves collaborating with ML Core, SaaS, and fintech startups to accelerate their journey to the cloud. He has contributed to Amazon Web Services technical field community and has been featured in machine learning blogs. Beyond his role at AWS, Supreet is passionate about education. He has been a Python and data science mentor in Bengaluru, offering training in areas such as automation, web development, data analysis, and machine learning. He has also mentored at events like Builders Camp, focusing on real time business use cases with Amazon Web Services machine learning stack. Supreet sir has organized technical content on AWS blogs, including topics like simplifying continuous learning on Amazon Comprehend custom models using Comprehend Flywheel. His articles are aimed at professionals seeking to enhance their understanding of machine learning operations on AWS. We are very much delighted to have you here, sir. Thank you. Sir, I hand over the session to you, sir. Supreet, sir.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope my voice is audible. Can you please confirm if I'm audible?
Yes, yeah, audible, sir. So
Okay.
you can go ahead.
Okay, perfect. Firstly, good evening, everyone. Thanks for making time to join the faculty development sessions. And it's an absolute pleasure for me to be here to kickstart this program. And just to give a bit of introduction before we get started. So myself, Supreet, I'm a startup solutions architect. I lead tech for GenAI startups and ML core startups across India for Amazon Web Services. So I primarily lead the technology from the technology standpoint on everything tech for ML core and GenAI core startups. So today, what we're going to do is let me get started with sharing my screen. Just give me a minute, please. Can someone please confirm if you are able to see the PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, it is visible, sir.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So, what I want to do is I want to cover some of the brief aspects of generative AI and how it's transforming the current technology and across different domains. Particularly, I want to pick the domain of education because GenAI is being very instrumental in transforming the entire industry, be it from the perspective of, let's say, finance sector, healthcare, or be it content creation, e-commerce, or education. It's been very instrumental in transforming the entire industry. However, I want to pick up one of them, which is GenAI for education, and I want to talk more about that, right? Now, let's get started. This is basically what the journey looks like, right? We have seen multiple different domains from getting started with artificial intelligence to machine learning to deep learning and generative AI. Typically, you would see that these terminologies are we interchangeably use the terms machine learning, deep learning, artificial intelligence, and generative AI, and so on, right? This comes under different buckets, and these are different technologies indeed. So what I want to get started with is I want to draw a very clear line between each of these technologies because it's very important to understand what is what, right? What exactly is artificial intelligence? What is machine learning? What is deep learning? And then comes generative AI. So we're going to dive deep a bit more into generative AI. I'm going to keep the session as hands-on as possible so that we can sort of explore, understand what are the trends in the market right now, what are the solutions that the industries are building, what are the groundbreaking solutions that the industries are building. That is what I'm going to do for the second half of the session. For the first half, I want to clarify and set things straight on these terminologies, right? So let's get started with artificial intelligence, right? Now, artificial intelligence in very simple term is something that can mimic human knowledge or human intelligence, right? Now, artificial intelligence doesn't necessarily have to be anything that's algorithmic or something where you have built a model. No, it doesn't have to be a model building. There doesn't have to be any sort of model building for you to get into artificial intelligence. I'll give you a very good example of what artificial intelligence could be, right? Now, let's say for a human, or let's say Supreet as a person, if I want to predict if it's going to rain today or not, what do I do? Right? Or in fact, anyone in this room right now, if you have to predict if it's going to rain or not, there are two things that you can do. One is, of course, you can Google the weather report and see if it's going to rain. The second thing that you can do is you can just step outside your house and you can just look at the sky, right? So when you look at the sky, if you see that there are clouds and the sky is very cloudy today, you would say that, hey, there is a chance that it might rain. If you see that it's very sunny and the skies are very clear, you would say that, hey, I don't think it's going to rain, right? Now, if I build a solution which can just look at an image and say that the skies look clear and it is not cloudy, it is artificial intelligence necessarily, right? You haven't trained a model per se. It's just a very simple rule-based approach, right? It's a very simple rule-based approach. If the sky has a lot of clouds, then there is a high probability that it's going to rain. Else, it's not going to rain. Even this if-else logic, a very simple if-else logic, is also artificial intelligence. Why? At the end of the day, it's mimicking human intelligence, right? Just now, let's get one level, deeper, right? That is machine learning. It's a subset of AI. It's a subset of machine learning. Now, machine learning is something that you'll get into if you're not able to identify the patterns just by looking through the naked eye, right? If there are patterns that are hidden in the data and you would need a machine learning model to understand this data, that's when you start getting into machine learning, right? Now, what comes under machine learning? It could be a typical classification problems, regression problems, clustering problems. Now, it could be as simple as, like, let's say, a simple regression, or it could be a support vector machine, or it could be something like a random forest classifier, right? Or any of the clustering algorithms as well. It could be k-means, k-nearest neighbors, and whatnot. Now, just revising, artificial intelligence basically mimics the human knowledge. It could be as simple as a if-else, if-then statements. Now, coming to machine learning, this is more of identifying the trend in the data that is not visible to the human eye, right? That's when you get into these algorithms that I just talked about. Now, let's say I want to go one level deeper. Now, what could be a really good use case of deep learning? Now, let's say you want to do some digit recognition or character recognition, right? This is not something that you can achieve just by using machine learning. Now, you need some neural networks. Now, where does this deep learning term come from, right? Deep learning is all about neural networks. Where does this term come from? When I talk about neural networks, the core word is basically neural, which is nothing but neuron, right? Neurons are nothing but the fundamental cells in our brain. So anything that can mimic a human thinking, or to the complexity of the thinking level should be as complex as our human brain, right? So when you look at a particular object, you immediately understand that, hey, that particular object is so and so. When you are reading through, like, let's say a newspaper, right? You are able to identify each and every character, form a word, you're able to form the sentence, and you're able to read through that. That's necessarily what we call as, again, computer vision that we try to mimic using deep learning. So necessarily anything that can mimic the level of thinking of a human brain or a neuron is basically what we build upon, called as neural networks. That comes under deep learning, right? Now, finally coming to the generative AI. Now, based on the learning from all the past, now you about 1970, which was about what, close to about 55 years ago. Yeah. Now, does that mean that the tech is new? What exactly was going on? I mean, when I say that, hey, the paper was published in 1970, but the first thing that we acted upon was in 2021 when GPT came out, right? When the ChatGPT application came out. It is just that we didn't have enough compute power, or we didn't have the compute resources, what we call as GPUs, right? We didn't have access to such level of powerful GPUs to execute the paper that we had published back in 1970. Now that we have access to the GPUs, the semiconductors, the chipsets that we require to basically make these things happen, now we are in the era of GenAI, right? So to briefly differentiate, this is how it looks like. And always remember that GenAI is again a subset of deep learning, which is a subset of machine learning, which is again a subset of artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence is sort of like an umbrella for all of these concepts, right? Everything GenAI is artificial intelligence. Everything artificial intelligence is not GenAI, right? This is a very important, the reason why I'm stressing a lot on this particular slide is because we need to understand these terminologies well and need to understand when to use what, right? It is important that you don't interchangeably use these terminologies or concepts, right? Now let's get started. What exactly is generative AI, right? Now, weren't we able to create new content before? Like let's say the era of ChatGPT? Yes, we were. So there were a lot of models. For example, if I have to take one, BERT model, right? BERT model used to basically do the next word prediction. You are able to predict what is the next word using the BERT models. And these models are something that we have built and we have used, in the era of, like, let's say around 2018, 2019 as well. So, meaning to say, we don't have to get to the generative AI to even create content. So, what exactly do we mean by generative AI if I'm also saying that, hey, in 2018, 2019, I was able to do the next word prediction? It just means that we are getting into something called as multimodal, right? So, there's another terminology that you need to understand. Multimodal is nothing but not just text to text. We are talking about text to image. Um, All right. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. I think I just got logged out from Microsoft Teams. Let me just share my screen and get started with where we left. Uh, can someone please quickly confirm if you're able to see my screen? Okay, thank
Okay.
you.
Yes, sir.
Right.
It's visible. Yeah.
Okay. No, resuming from where we left it off. So, what I mean to say is, yes, generative AI is now able to create content in what we call as multimodality. Multimodality is nothing but text to text, not just text to text. We have text to images, text to videos, text to music. Generative AI. Now, generative AI primarily powered by two different concepts. Before those two different concepts, one primary concept called as foundation models, which we call as FMs, right? Now, that foundation model that I'm talking about is supported by two different, again, I would say entities called as large language models and large image models, right? Primarily, large language models are something that works on text inputs, along with, of course, multimodal inputs as well, but primarily on text. So large language models are something that is able to identify the trend in the data, understand, or what we call as the NLU, natural language understanding. So it can basically understand what the user is trying to say, what is the user's intent, what is the user's ask, and then necessarily create the content accordingly, right? Now comes large image models, which it basically works on a concept called as diffusion. Now you would have heard about models such as stable diffusion, VO3, or it could be something around the lines of flux or Sora models. So these are all basically based on the techniques called as diffusion, right? Diffusion is nothing but from noise generating images or videos. So at the end of the day, when you look at an image, it's all pixelated, right? Images are basically measured in terms of pixels. How do you generate an image from the noise? How do you generate the image pixel by pixel, which is considered to be noise, but at the end of the day, come up with a final image? These are the two main entities that constitute of a foundation models. Just repeating that again, foundation models constitute of large language models and then also large image models. Now moving ahead, right? Now we've been talking about Gen AI, but what is the sort of impact that it's having on, the industry right now? Now the business leaders expect generative AI to be the leading tech in the next 5 years, right? Especially for
Sir.
I'm so sorry to all the attendees. I'm not sure why, but I think I'm getting dropped off the meeting. Anyway, I'll just resume. Hope that doesn't happen again. So back from where I stopped. Again, this is not just a statement that Gartner is making. It's based on a survey that happened in 2023 that in the next 5 years, AI is going to be revolutionary. It's going to change a lot of things from the perspective of revenue generation to operational overhead, reducing the operational overhead and whatnot, right? Some of the key metrics, if you look at it, 39% of the business and IT leaders expect the AI related technologies to be especially important in the next 5 years. And this is not just a statement, but it's a trend that we are actually seeing right now. Now, these are all statements that I've collected from 2023 just to have a perspective of what we are seeing in 2025, 2 years from this survey. And you can see that most of these have turned to be really true, right? Top AI use cases, include transforming operations, personalizing products, creating new revenue channels, which is all being seen right now. Then coming to mature AI organizations leverage AI for creating new revenue channels and assortment planning or allocation management. This is something that we are seeing on a day-to-day basis. AI and GenAI has now penetrated into industries such as robotics as well, where there is a lot of automation, a lot of stress on automation, and things are moving well there, right? Um, Not just from the perspective of automation, but also supporting the human entities to simplify the existing processes as well, right? Organizations, right? So typically you would see that today I'm actually delivering this session from a tier two city. I'm in Surat right now. Um, for again consulting for one of the biggest GenAI startups, right? So you would only imagine that, hey, I think all the groundbreaking technologies could be happening in one of the metro cities, or probably in Bangalore, which is the Silicon Hub, for India, or it could be in a metro city such as, could be Delhi, Mumbai. But literally, you would think that there is so much GenAI penetration in the tier two cities and tier three cities as well as of today, right? In fact, like I said, one of the biggest GenAI customers for AWS as of today is located in Surat, right? So that's how revolutionary the market has become in terms of GenAI. And that's the sort of like, 10 of adoption that we're seeing as of today, right? Now, moving ahead, GenAI enables innovation and unlocks new business value, right? Three primary things that you would use GenAI for. One is creativity, the other one is productivity, the third is connectivity, right? Now, creativity, of course, is a no-brainer. We would have all used GenAI for one or the other, use cases. It could be as simple as I have some doubts that I want to get clarified. I have some questions that I want to just Google. Instead of Googling, I just want to just get into any of the applications like chatbot, which is going to give me the direct answer, right? So creativity could be one. Now, just getting answers to your questions is just one way to look at it. But we have seen a lot of, new applications such as the Neo Banana, which was just released by Google. You'd see that you can edit images. You can basically modify the images as per your wish, right? You could basically do automated photoshopping using these tools or generating LLM or a foundation model and say, generate a video of Supreet standing in front of Eiffel Tower, right? So that is definitely possible. So one aspect to look at is creativity. Second comes the productivity. Productivity is basically on how do you automate certain things. For example, a very standard use case that we are seeing right now in the market is automation of support, right? So let's say there are a lot of issues, a lot of incoming tickets to the team. We see a lot of organizations who are automating support in terms of like it could be a chat bot, it could be just replying over the mails, but we are seeing a lot of automation in that space. So in fact, what I mean to say is organizations are enhancing their productivity using GenAI. Now coming to connectivity, right? So you want to engage with your customers and across organizations. You want to collect feedback from your customers directly. You want to understand what are the pain points so that you can improve your product accordingly. So that basically enables the connectivity with your customers, right? And also within the organization. So these are the three main things that you look at when you're using GenAI. Some of the global edtechs who are innovative using again generative AI. Cambridge University is one of them. Blackboard is one of them, and of course, one of the biggest platforms for any online certifications, which is Pearson View, is also basically leveraging GenAI. Now, if you look at it, it's in three different, perspectives. The first one, let's say, if I take Cambridge for example, they're enhancing the student experience. Now, it could be just the onboarding, right? When I say just the onboarding, could be something on the lines of like, let's say KYC, right? You would like to the student basically needs to complete their profile. They want to upload their college ID proofs, the entire automation of face matching and whatnot. That basically is something, it's one of the aspects of enhancing the student experience, right? So Cambridge is leveraging GenAI to do so necessarily what's happening is now there's this concept that when you go through a concept or go through a particular video, if you take a quiz on that and test yourself around that, it makes you remember things better, right? That is the whole idea behind. If you go through a lot of courses on platforms such as deep learning AI or Coursera or Udemy, you would see that all of these courses would have a quiz at the end, and that's the sole reason behind it, right? You would remember these concepts really well. So Blackboard is something that's basically sort of automating this entire process, goes through the video, creates a quiz automatically, and evaluates the quiz for the student as well, right? So that is again boosting the productivity by also being creative. Now coming to the last one, which is optimizing the business outcomes. Let me take Pearson as an example. It's one of the clients that I've worked with as well. This is basically a Australia-based client. Pearson VUE necessarily has automated the entire process of proctoring, right? Because it's an online exam. I still remember taking my first certification, I think back in 2019. Um, I did it out of a certification center where I had to go in person and do it. Now, post-COVID, there was an option to take these certifications online. But the drawback of that was they were assigning one proctor per one exam, right? Which was not a scalable model for Pearson. Now we have gone to a stage where they have completely automated the process of, the proctoring and whatnot, right? So that's where we are as of today. So this is how some of the global edtechs are innovating right now. And this is also, again, the reason why I took edtech as the industry to talk about today is maybe it could spark some ideas within all of us in the room on how we could probably adopt some of these technologies. For example, it could be as simple as creating quizzes for the students after sessions, or basically automating the process of creating assignments for the students, evaluating that, being very creative in basically how we are, providing the assignments to the students, and how quickly are we now, what is the differentiator, right? Now, does it mean that GenAI is same for everyone? Now, everyone who's using GenAI use the same set of tools, same set of models. The complete ecosystem is the same for everyone? Not necessarily, right? Always remember that the data is your differentiator. The data that, like, let's say, for example, if I have to take the name of a university, let's say I take Kalpataru Institute of Technology, the data that Kalpataru Institute of Technology has is something unique by itself, right? Now, at the end of the day, your model is only as good as your data. So there is this concept of garbage in, garbage out. So you give garbage to the model, it only throws out garbage, right? When I say garbage, I'm talking about the quality of the data, right? So your model is only as good as your data. The better the data is, the better the outcomes of the model is, right? Now, depending on your use case scenario, depending on how you want to innovate, how you want to build your own solutions, you need to use your data and make that as your differentiator, right? So always remember that all of us could be using the same set of tools, but there is always a layer of customization that you can build, which will be the core differentiator of your solution, right? Now, just want to take another example. Global Alumni has built Chatbot Assistant to improve student experience, right? Now, let's just quickly go through what the challenge was and what was the solution that was proposed and what are the outcomes. The challenge was that the students were challenged with pinpointing the exact moment in a video where a particular explanation is given, or locating a specific answer when a course includes a vast array of materials such as documents, videos, and audio files, right? For example, you're going through a Udemy course and you would see that there are that video. Now we have lost track of in which particular video and at which minute this concept was covered, right? That is the exact problem statement that we're trying to solve here. Now the solution was that the customer integrated LLM with Amazon Bedrock. I'll talk about Amazon Bedrock as a platform and a concept called as retrieval augmented generation, which is something that you'll learn about in the sessions that are coming tomorrow. So they leverage this concept as Amazon Bedrock and RAG to develop a chatbot that enables the students to quickly find answers using natural language. Now, when I say using natural language, as a student, like let's say I'm going through a GenAI course and the third video talks about large image models, I can necessarily ask a question saying, which video contained this particular concept? And it will point me to the third video. And not just that, I can also ask a concept saying, which minute of which video talks about the diffusion models? It can necessarily go point you in that particular direction, in that particular video, and to that very minute, right? That's basically the solution that was developed as a result of this particular engagement. The outcome was that this improved the student engagement by 25% and improved the student learning experience as well, right? So at the end of the day, if the platform is very student friendly, where they can go revisit the lectures, they can go visit the videos of recorded lectures, and they want to, sort of like revise the particular concept again, you can necessarily just ask in natural language saying, um, this particular concept is something that I want to revisit. Can you take me to that particular minute, right? And the platform automatically does that, right? So this is again another food for thought on how we could probably provide a better student experience or build some innovative tools even for our universities as well. I'll not take a lot of time on multiple of these things, but this is again another good example of AI use cases. You would see that Amazon Poly and Amazon Translate. As Translate goes by its own name, it's basically used to translate one language to another. Amazon Poly is nothing but text to speech. Right? So these are AI services. These are not Gen AI services, right? Now let's move ahead. I want to talk mainly about these three layers, right? Now, firstly, what we discussed about is we talked about AI, ML, DL, and GenAI as the prime different layers. Now we are talking about what are the different stacks within the AI, generative AI stack as well, right? Now, again, GenAI can be subdivided into three sections. The topmost layer that you see is basically applications that leverage LLMs and other foundation models, right? When I say applications that just leverage LLMs and foundation models, it just means that I have access to GPT models, I have access to Anthropic Claude models, I have access to Cohere, Lighton, Gemini models. What I'm doing is I'm just making a API call and getting the response. So these are something that we call as wrapper apps, right? Basically, you're building a wrapper around the existing LLM. You're just making a single call and just getting the answer. Very similar to, let me take an example. Application that leverage LLMs and other foundation models. A really good example is ChatGPT, right? ChatGPT by itself is not a model. Let's all remember that ChatGPT is an application. It's not a LLM by itself, right? So ChatGPT leverages some of the LLMs such as GPT-4, GPT-5, GPT-4o, and a plethora of LLMs to necessarily give you the right answer. So in the underlying application, basically there are multiple LLMs that this application is working with. So that's a really good example of the first layer that you're seeing. Now let's get to a level deeper, right? Tools to build with LLMs and other foundation models. Now, when I say tools to build with other LLMs and foundation models, it just means data is your differentiator. So here we are talking about how can I build these tools? How can I customize the foundation models that we have using the data that I can use to customize, right? That is basically the second layer. In the second layer, we necessarily talk about how do I customize the LLMs? How do I fine tune the LLMs to be very specific to my data? That's the second layer. And finally comes the third layer, which is the infrastructure for foundation model training and inference. This is nothing but the GPUs, right? So there are GPU farms that you require to basically train these models. And some of these models, in fact, cost millions of dollars to even train a single model, right? And I'm talking about even single iterations costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. And for a full run of training with like, let's say even 30, 40 or 50 epochs that you want to run, it's going to cost a fortune, right? And the recent models that are getting developed are costing billions of dollars. So the third layer is the most important one. This layer provides the infrastructure for foundation model training and inference, right? Now, what we've done so far is we have covered AI, machine learning, deep learning, a bit of GenAI. Let's see in action what are these different concepts, and take some examples, right? So take some key takeaways using just a quick demo. Hello everyone. I'm so sorry, not sure why, but I think I'm getting logged out very frequently. Um, anyway, meanwhile, I've just set up the complete demo as well. I hope my screen is visible. Can someone quickly confirm if you are able to see my demo screen? Hello? Okay, let's get started. Let me give you a quick demo of a couple of AI services, right? And then I'll get to something that I had built, which I'm very proud of, which is in production right now, which most of you would have used. Let me talk about that. So primarily, something around the lines of, let's say, hi, how are you, right? So if you see, I can on the fly choose the target language that I require. Now, could be something around the lines of, let's say, let me just go for Kannada, right? This says, hi, Nivu Hegidiri, right? Now, on the fly, it's able to translate from one language to another. Now, I wouldn't consider this to be generative AI. It's not generating something new. What it's doing is it's basically a typical encoder decoder based architecture where it's translating text from one dialect to another dialect, right? This is a very
Sir, now you can share the screen.
Yeah, and let me try doing that. Just a minute. Yeah, please let me know if you can see the screen again. So sorry for the operational issues. Not sure what's happening. Anyway, yeah. I hope my screen is visible. So getting back to the demo that I was talking about, another language service that you can typically look at is text to speech, right? Again, a very standard use case that you would look at. So let's say I want to get a generative voice of, again, the text that I'm um, just giving as input. And let's say I click on the option of listen, right? So this is a voice that you heard, which was machine generated completely, but it still belongs to language services, not necessarily complete generative, because text to voice has been here for a while. It's not a new tech, right? Generative AI is something that basically gets into the concept of NLU, that is natural language understanding, and then basically gets into much more, sort of like deeper understanding of the user intent, then comes up with a final response on what exactly the user is asking for, and then give the right result, right? Now, let me quickly demo one of the services called as recognition. This is more into deep learning, right? I just talked about some of the language services which comes under AI and slightly a bit under ML, but I'm going to talk about something around the lines of deep learning now. So this is again the same solution that I was talking about, which I mentioned. And that became sort of like the basis of solution where our public sector teams basically connected with the government of India and have now built basically what we call as Digiyatra, right? Now in Digiyatra in the airports, you can necessarily just go, you can scan your boarding pass on your mobile phones, and when you enter the gates, it necessarily just scans your face and just lets you in. You don't have to give your ID proofs. There is no manual check done. It's very seamless, right? Let me show you how seamless it can get when you're using a solution like Digiyatra, right? So if you look at the backend solution, this is how it necessarily works. Now, let me just take a photo of myself. So this is basically what I'm trying to show is how the backend of a solution like Digiyatra works. Now, if you look at it, I've taken a photo of myself. And if you look at it, it has assigned a particular face ID to me. It has basically gathered the bounding box coordinates as well. Bounding box coordinates is nothing but, the how, like, let's say if I have to put a rectangle around my face, that is basically the bounding box coordinates, right? So I put a bounding box coordinates, then comes the face detail, the bounding box, and certain landmarks. Where is my left eye, the left end of the mouth, the right end of the mouth, the nose. The pose, yaw and roll is nothing but the XYZ axis of the face. What is the brightness and sharpness of this particular image? And the model is 99.999% confident that there is a face in this particular image, right? Now, what I've done is I've just registered my face in this particular collection. Now, let's say if I have to do a face comparison, let me show you how accurate these models are, right? So let me just take a live image of basically the live shot of the image or the video feed right now. Let me capture an image here. Now, let me just drop in a document that I want to compare it against, right? Let me find. Let me just find the right document that I can probably give. Okay. Now, if you look at this very old passport document of mine, probably around like 2014, 2015, maybe. And if you look at this, this is image as of today, and this is something that was taken years ago, more than 10 years ago. And you I would say, the accuracy that you can get with a really good deep learning model. And one of the really good examples is recognition, right? Recognition is just one of the image analysis and video analysis services that we have to offer. Now, whatever you saw right now is basically how the backend of services such as Digiatra is working, right? It's a very similar thing. You would basically upload your documents from your repositories or document repositories such as DigiLocker, which could be your passport, it could be your Aadhaar, it could be a PAN card, whatever it is. You upload these documents, set of documents onto the solution. It basically indexes your face. And when you do a live check, or basically when you scan your boarding pass, it gathers all the details, matches against the details that you have uploaded from your document, and comes up with a face similarity indexing. Now, when you reach the airport and when you are entering the gates, when you stand in front of the camera, this step is exactly what's happening here, right? Necessarily, you do a quick comparison against your document ID proof, and you see that there is a face match, and it basically lets you in. So this is necessarily how the entire process of Digiatra works. This is just an example of how deep learning again is revolutionizing today's technology, or simplifying most of the processes. Now, finally, coming into the GenAI aspect, right? Now let's talk about GenAI. I'm talking about a platform called as Amazon Bedrock, right? So what exactly is Amazon Bedrock? Amazon Bedrock is, you would have heard about GPT models, you would have heard about Gemini models, you would have heard about Anthropic Claude models. So Bedrock is that one platform which consolidates multiple models into one single aspect, right? So it's just a single platform where you can access these multiple models and make your API calls and then get a response necessarily. Now, what are the different models that you can necessarily access from a platform like Amazon Bedrock? So these are all the choice of models that you have. You have about 62 plus LLMs, or large language models or large image models, that you can necessarily access using one single platform. All you have to do is just basically create an API key and start consuming it, right? For example, it could be just a LLM or a large language model like a Llama model, or it could be just like a Claude model or the GPT model. Using all of these models, right? Um, so bottom line, Bedrock is one of those platforms that can necessarily help you simplify the process and leverage GenAI to maximum capability that you can, right? Now, if I have to go back and let's say test one of the models, let me just give a simple prompt. Let me just choose a model on the lines of, let's say, Claude Sonnet 4, and give a prompt such as, show the importance of the data being your differentiator, right? I want to give that really good example to you. Look at this. You just asked about Kalpataru Institute of Technology, and it's talking about a private engineering college in Pune, Maharashtra. How does the context matter a lot? How does your data becomes your differentiator? All of this matters a lot, right? And I haven't done the fact check, and there is a good chance that this Kalpataru Institute of Technology is also present in, there is a university named Kalpataru Institute of Technology in Pune, Maharashtra, right? And this is basically one of the top models out there in the market right now. But what would I be expecting? I would be expecting Kalpataru Institute of Technology, which is in Tiptur, Karnataka, right? That is something that I would be expecting. Now, what do I do? What I've necessarily done is, I know that data is my differentiator. So what I necessarily did is, I indexed Kalpataru Institute of Technology's website onto my model, right? Now, when I necessarily talk about, let's say, that's again a concept called as RAG that we talked about, which is retrieval and augmented generation. You would learn more about these concepts in the upcoming sessions throughout this entire program. But what I am meaning to say is, I indexed the website on my model right now, which is Anthropic Claude model. And now if I ask about, let's say, I had to provide a slightly bit more context, right? Saying, talk about, like, let's say, these. So what I've asked is, I said, talk about KIT Tiptur, right? Because I have added all of these data, necessarily what I'm meaning to say is, now if you just look into all the details that I'm necessarily getting, it's talking about all the programs that you necessarily have, the admission procedures, then you have the placement opportunities. This is all the data that it has necessarily gathered from the website, right? So I can talk about specifically on Kalpataru. Right. Now, if you give a bit more context, what I'm trying to say is like basically you have techniques such as prompt engineering, context engineering, agentic context engineering. If you look at this, now with very less context that I provided, just saying talk about KIT, it assumed that it's again some other different university altogether, not exactly. I'm talking about Kalpataru Institute of Technology, Tiptur. When I also asked about Kalpataru Institute of Technology, it said that there's one in Pune, Maharashtra, which could be the case. I'll have to do a fact check on that, but which could be the case. Now, I further said, look into Kalpataru Institute of Technology, Tiptur specifically, and I'm asking more details about it. Now it's able to give me all the details because I've indexed this data onto my model, right? Here, if you can see, it says that Engineering College, which is located in Tiptur, Tumkur district, Karnataka, which is affiliated with VTU, then VTU Belgavi, and then approval is AICTE. And then you're talking about all the branches, what is the eligibility criteria, entrance exams, which is KCET, Comet K, JEE mains, and then management quota, admission steps, what is the academic structure and whatnot. So this data by default is not available with the model because at the first sight of asking about KIT, it started hallucinating. Right? Hallucinating is a concept where the LLM Hi again, everyone. Extremely sorry for what's happening. I'm not sure. Everything else seems to be working fine, but I keep getting logged out. No matter how advanced the GenAI technology is, I think it's just these teething issues that you always come across. But anyway, I'll just try to carry forward again with what we have. Anyway, so this is necessarily what I'm talking about from the perspective of GenAI, right? And if you look at it, what I'm also trying to do is, if you look at this, I have this data sync source that's continuously syncing the data from cat.ac.in, right? So what it's necessarily doing is, I have a data crawler, a web crawler as the data source, which is continuously crawling the data from this particular website. And I hope the screen is visible. It is, yeah. Let me just stop sharing and share it again anyway. Okay, I'm so sorry. Let me just hope my screen is visible now. Okay, I hope the screen is visible now. Please let me know if you are not able to see the screen again. Source link is kitthipto.ac.in, right? Now it's continuously crawling the data. So any changes that are also made, um, you know, um, any changes that are made to the website, you can necessarily, you don't have to go back and retrain the model or fine tune the model over and over again. All you have to do is point to the right source link, and you don't have to do anything. It's completely automated, right? And if you look at it, that is exactly how the model is able to get all the most accurate information that we are talking about, particularly on KIT Tiptur. So this is basically what I wanted to show. In the first session, I just wanted to cover around the aspects of what is artificial intelligence, what is machine learning, what is deep learning, what is generative AI, and basically completely have the holistic picture of understanding from the demo perspective or the practical implementation perspective of what is what. That is basically the objective that I had for the first session. And this is, again, just to showcase how data is your differentiator. How do you, sort of customize the LLMs based on your needs? How do you create your own knowledge base? For example, how do I create this data source that basically completely crawls the website and keeps in sync? For example, if KIT Tiptur, let's say, updates the database 2 days later, the same minute, I'll have the same data which is already ingested to my account. So necessarily there is no lag in the data as well. Everything is kept in source, right? So this is necessarily what I wanted to showcase and help you understand what are the different aspects of AI, not just GenAI, because it's really important to understand these different concepts between artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and generative AI, and just give you some demos on what are these different language services, what exactly does platform like Bedrock have to offer, and how does this prompt engineering, context engineering, uh, sort of creating your knowledge bases using your own data, which is your differentiator, works, right? So this is what I wanted to cover as part of the first session. And this is probably not what we were expecting, I think, as part of the first session, where we had a lot of, I think, operational issues. But for the second session, I think I'll try to get it sorted during the break. Let's see if I can use a different ID altogether. But sorry for the inconvenience again. Hope it was informative to understand what are these different concepts and learn more about it. I have some very interesting demos to showcase. Again, something that's been built for real life use cases. So just so that it opens up again out of possibility for you as well. So let's probably sync back in 10 minutes and we can get started with the second session. And yeah, I have some really cool demos that I can showcase in the second session as well. So let's take a quick 10 minutes break and then we can sync back again. Thank you.
Dear participants, we'll have a break for 5 minutes. And today's feedback link has been shared in the chat box. Kindly fill the feedback form. Feedback form has been given in the chat box. Please fill the today's feedback form of day 1, session 1. Now we'll have a break for 5 minutes. After 5 minutes, please join the session.
All right. Hi, everyone.
Yes, yes, sir. You
Welcome.
can share the screen. Yeah.
Okay. Welcome back again. So let's dive deep a bit more into some of the real-time use cases. I want to show a really interesting solution that I had built for one of the top interior designing companies in India. Now, before that, let's resume from where we left off, right? So over the next 45 minutes, I'm going to cover some of the applications, again, not just in the tech industry. So the first one that I wanted to cover was explore the art of possibility, provide some food for thought to understand, what are the different art of possibilities? How can I enhance the student experience? How can I, um, you know, understand or get a deeper knowledge about these concepts of artificial intelligence, deep learning, machine learning, and generative AI and whatnot, right? That was the core intent of the first session. Now the second session, so what I want to do is right. I think the issues are never ending. Anyway, let me just continue from where we dropped off. Um, yeah. So from where we dropped off, basically talking about the three layers of the GenAI stack. Now we are talking about the foundation models, how it can necessarily take the given actions, right? Now, let's explore more around Amazon Bedrock and some of the art of possibilities. So we did talk about the broad source of models that we have. Uh, there's the concept of again foundation model providers, what we again called as FMPs. FMPs are nothing but the companies that are building these foundation models, right? Now, who are these companies who are building these foundation models? It could be Anthropic, who are basically building the Claude models. It could be Meta or necessarily Facebook, who is building the Llama models. Amazon are building Titan, and the newer version of models are called the Nova models. Similarly, again, Google is building Gemini, models and whatnot, right? So these are all the foundation model providers, right? Now, talking about the responsible AI part of it, right? Now we are talking about, hey, I want to build some groundbreaking solution that's gonna sort of, revolutionize the industry, or it's going to automate a lot of things. Very large interior designing startup in India, right? So let me just upload an image and show you what exactly we are trying to do here. Just give me a minute. All right, here is what I'm gonna do. Necessarily, what I want to do is I want to address the problem of automated cataloging, right? Product cataloging. Let me just click this icon and I'll show you what exactly we are doing here, right? Now, what is the problem that I'm trying to solve here? Now, the problem that I'm trying to solve here is that I have a lot of products. For example, a company like LiveSpace, who's one of the top interior designers. What they want to do is when I go to the LiveSpace website, I want to be able to discover the products well. When I say discover the products well, it means to say that if I want to use, like, let's say natural language and type red wooden sofa, I should get something similar of what I'm looking here, right? Or it could be a totally different style of sofa as well. Now, let's say I go for Chesterfield sort of sofa. So this is sort of like a Chesterfield leather finish sofa that you're seeing right here, right? Now, what I necessarily want to do is I have lot of products, raw images. How do I create a catalog out of it, right? So if you look at it, this is the entire process that's basically automating this entire cataloging process. What I did is I uploaded this image of a Chesterfield sofa. Chesterfield sofa is nothing but a type of a sofa. I've uploaded this image of a Chesterfield sofa and I've asked AI to do basically the image analysis. Now, this is necessarily generative AI that I'm talking about, right? So what it said, it's calling a model called as Claude 3.7 Sonnet, right? It's basically calling a model which is accepting text and image as an input. Here, this particular image is being taken as an input, right? Um, Okay, so this image is being taken as an input. Now, what it necessarily does is it's taking the text input where I'm asking the LLM or the large language model to basically things that it's basically doing. Let me show you the raw response first, right? This is the raw response I'm getting from Claude 3.7 Sonnet. It says that, okay, this is the particular ID of this message or session ID. Then you have the role of our assistant. And this is the text that I'm getting from the LLM. It says that the name is a classic Chesterfield leather sofa. The description is a luxurious three-seater featuring traditional deep pattern tufting and rolled arms, crafted from premium brown leather with exquisite detailing, including decorative nail head trim and turned wooden feet, right? Now, if you look at it, it has also identified the other key factors as well. It says that the category is under furniture, the type is a sofa, the color is brown, the material is leather, style is traditional, estimated price, and some of the tags such as like Chesterfield, tufted, vintage, luxury, the dimensions estimate, and finally the features of the sofa, right? And here it's talking about some of the consumption of the input tokens, the output tokens, and whatnot. This is from the costing perspective of how much it costed for me to necessarily run this particular check, right? Now, beautifying this response I get from the LLM, this is the extracted data. I was able to create sort of like a model card for this, right? So look at the product information. I was able to attach a name. I was able to attach some tags. I was able to give the dimensions of the sofa, what is the color, what is the material, and whatnot, right? Now, what I can necessarily do is now I have indexed all these images. If you look at it, I have about 28 products that I have indexed, out of which 25 catalogs, or basically the indexing of these products onto the catalog, was AI generated. Only 3 products were manually indexed in the catalog, right? Now, what does this cataloging mean? I mean, okay, I have created these tags, I have indexed it onto something called as open search. But how do I search for it, right? Now let me show you the other aspect of the product search as well, right? Now let's say I go for a brown leather sofa. I'm just going to click on enter. Now I no longer have to select what the, sometimes when you go to a website, it asks for check boxes by itself. Do you want a sofa? Do you want a, like, let's say a chair, a wooden chair, a table, and whatnot, right? But those are all predefined. What I'm trying to do is we can automate whatever the user want to ask. We can get to a stage where I don't have to necessarily, manually set certain things up, right? So I'm like, basically, some of these products are again repeated, but these are basically different SKUs. If you look at it, the IDs are different, right? So these are like, again, the same images that were indexed multiple times. So red sofa is one of them. Like, let's say I can ask for a beach colored sofa as well. So that particular one doesn't have the image, but if you look at it, this is again a beach colored sofa. So if you look at it, I was able to automate the complete end-to-end process of having sort of like, just the product image that I'm ingesting onto this solution, which is able to create some tags, which is able to create some, um, you know, um, descriptions, assign a name, come up with a category, what is the subcategory of this particular item, and ingest the data so intelligently that I can actually ask a natural language query and basically get a relevant response. I can make it even more complicated as well. I can ask questions such as, I want this particular colored sofa, this material, under this particular price and whatnot, right? I can definitely do that. Or I could do one more thing. Now Hi, folks. I'm back again. Sorry, I know this is not the experience that you would probably be expecting, but I think we are having a lot of operational issues today. Nevertheless, coming back to the demo, I think, yeah, I mean, we are having a lot of break in the flow, but yeah, I'll try to keep it as seamless as possible. So what we were talking about is basically the natural language search. Just going back to what we were discussing, this was a complete end-to-end automation of how you could just use image to basically do automated product cataloging, and how can you just use natural language search to basically search the product from the backend database, right? If you look at it, I'm not making any sort of like, hard coded, DB calls or running any queries and whatnot, right? All I'm doing is I'm just asking questions, or can just run questions such as comfortable leather chair, or a wooden dining table under $1,000, or like, let's say, just say a luxury sofa and whatnot, right? And it's able to get the results, not just very accurately but very quickly. If you look at it, able to find 10 results in just 17 milliseconds. That's how quickly that we are able to run, and this is how another really good example is, again, not just the natural language search. I'm also talking about the filter based search. Now I can also add some filters. It could be something around the lines of, let's say, maybe natural oak. I'm not sure if you have any products with natural oak. Yeah, there are no products with natural oak. Let me just try a color that we have. Maybe go with brown. And what sort of product do I need? I want a sofa maybe. Let me just quickly see if we can apply filters, and there you go. So we're talking about brown, and then we have sofa. So if you look at this, we have a bunch of items that we are getting listed under. These are just filter based searches, right? um, and showing the in stock only products, or again, you can mix and match any of the products or the filters that you want to apply over the products as well, right? So here you see that with the index products, there is no black sofa that we have indexed so far, right? Out of the 29 products that have been in index, there is no black sofa, and it says no match for your selected filter. So this is how you can sort of like, this is just one example. I'm not sure if we have mustard, but we can just give it a quick try. Yes, we do have mustard sofas, mustard colored. So if you look at it, this is mustard yellow. So we do have a sofa here, right? And if you see here, it's talking about the SKU, the material of the sofa, the color, the price. And this is a AI generated indexing that we have created. And it's basically a elegant two-seater sofa, unfostered in rich mustard leather with sleek contemporary design, features plush cushioning with clean lines and slightly. It's a complete description. It's not printing out the complete description, but necessarily, if you look at it, this was just a solution completely built end to end on GenAI. And the next time you see any of the e-commerce platforms or a customer-facing platforms which are having similar solutions where you can necessarily ask questions in natural language, get more details around it and whatnot, always remember that this is not just traditional ML. We are delving into the space of generative AI, right? This is how a lot of organizations right now are simplifying the processes, enhancing the processes, making their existing processes more seamless, and revolutionizing it using GenAI, right? Now, with all of this comes we would have heard about some of the technologies such as deepfake, where people are able to edit someone else's, images and whatnot, right? Impersonate someone else necessarily, right? Which is basically creating a lot of chaos in the market. So it's always important to follow the responsible GenAI practices as well, right? So the first thing, if you look at it, hallucinations. These are some of the terminologies that you should definitely be aware of. So let's go through it, right? First one being hallucination. You often hear the term hallucination if you are working with LLMs a lot, right? So what are these hallucinations? So just going by the definition, these are mostly the responses from the LLMs, or the answers that you get from the LLMs, which are factually incorrect, right? It could be one of these, right? It could be either incorrect, it could be irrelevant, or it could be completely nonsensical, right? And why is this happening? Because of some of the limitations in the training data. For example, I asked about KIT to the LLM, which is Anthropic Claude, and it started talking about KIT in which is also apparently named Kalpataru Institute of Technology, but in Pune, right? It started talking about a totally different university while I was talking about Tiptur. Now, does that mean that that university doesn't exist? It does, but at the same time, it was irrelevant for my question. So that's a hallucination, right? Or it could be the incorrect answer for me. I'm talking about KIT Tiptur while it's talking about KIT Pune. So that's an incorrect or an irrelevant answer, right? Or sometimes you could ask some questions such as, what is 5 plus 3? Now, if the LLM responds 10, that's a completely nonsensical or incorrect response, right? So these are basically termed as hallucinations. Hallucinations doesn't always mean that the answer is incorrect. It could be sometimes irrelevant as well. For example, if I ask what is the capital of India and it says, um, you know, coffee is grown in this particular city of, let's say, Chikmagalur, then uh, it's totally irrelevant. The both are factually right. The fact that LLM threw back at the user is factually right, but it is irrelevant. So these are called hallucinations. Now coming to toxicity and safety, right? What happens is the answers display heavy discriminative, behavior, right? Which is basically unequal treatment of particular groups. For example, when you are doing, let's say, a face match, the solution works really well against a particular ethnicity of group of people, but it doesn't work the same way across other ethnicity. So that's a very clear problem of data bias, right? The data that you have used to train the model doesn't necessarily contain, like, let's say, data set of all the people across all the ethnicity, right? So that is necessarily again a problem of, again, toxicity and safety, because you're not being fair across all the ethnic groups. You are basically being very biased to a particular ethnic group, right? Now coming to copyrights and IP. What is copyrights and IP? Now, GenAI, I remember in the first slide, what we discussed about is content creation being one of the major use cases. But what is something that we'll have to also realize is who owns the IP or the copyright of this particular product. Now, the LLMs have generated this content. Does the user own the IP, or does the LLM or the foundation model provider own the IP of this particular product, or basically the content that is generated? That is also something that we need to go back and do, right? Finally comes the data privacy. Sometimes a lot of organizations in the software industry or in the IT industry have been advised not to use products like ChatGPT. Why is that? Because there have been a lot of reports, and it's also a fact, it's not just reports, it's also a fact that these LLMs use your data to basically train themselves and make themselves better, right? And there are mechanisms where LLMs do it by themselves, or maybe organizations Okay, seems like I have been given the permissions now. I was not able to present before. I just have a couple of slides. Let me just quickly cover them up actually. But I hope you're able to see the screen. So, coming back to the concepts that we're discussing about hallucinations, how do we address that? You basically enhance the accuracy of the model. And this comes from the flexibility that you get to choose from the current and the future foundation models that are very task specific and could also be domain specific. Then coming to the toxicity and safety, it is very important to sort of understand the transparency of the LLM, the flexibility that you get to choose different foundation models from different providers altogether is really important. Then finally, the controllability is how can you control the way the LLM responds to your queries, right? That is very necessary, and that is basically getting into the concepts of guardrails and whatnot. And finally, on the data privacy, it is very important to create a very secure environment and have a good security layer to basically understand the nitty-gritties of the security to keep the data private and make the solution more robust, right? So how do you start with your generative AI journey today? You select the right use case, discover the different features using step-by-step tutorials, and then finally get started on a POC for your use cases, right? Then where does the innovation begin? You start working with your customer or your end users. It doesn't always have to be a customer, it can be your end user, and start working backwards. Collect the problem statements that, let's say, the faculty are facing or the students are facing. Understand what kind of innovative solutions you can basically build to tackle those problems and necessarily do the rightful things, right? So some of the things that you need to ask is, now you can replace the word customer here with the end user. End user could be faculty, it could be students, it could be anyone. Then finally, end user, and how do you test the solution and measure success, right? These are some of the things that we typically ask when we are consulting for the GenAI and the ML core startups across India. And this is something that you should definitely keep in mind while you're building your solutions or thinking about building something in the space of GenAI. So the approach to driving transformation with AML, first thing, definitely need to upskill your current talent. Then need to activate your non-technical talent as well. Then finally tap into a pipeline where you can get into entry-level talent who is very well versed with the latest AI technologies or the GenAI tools that the market has to offer, right? Then finally coming with the skill assessment, now you have a lot of tools out there in the market that you can basically leverage to basically assess your skills, basically create a training plan, leverage these tools to basically get yourself certified with some of the leading certifications in the market, which could be something around the lines of, let's say, AWS machine learning specialty, if you want to take one example, right? So to get started, I would recommend start working backwards. Then have a immersive, a GenAI experience. Basically, start learning about the tools that are out there in the market. Run an experience-based accelerator, I would say. Just understand what are the different use cases, what are the solutions that are built out there, what are the different case studies, how are people tackling certain problems and whatnot. That is something you should definitely look into. A couple of last slides that I want to just quickly cover. GenAI can be used in wide range of use cases, not just limiting to what we discussed so far, right? Enhancing the experience. You can necessarily look into chatbots and virtual assistants or agent assist, which could be sort of like a voice bot. Contact center analytics. We have seen a huge uptick in the BFSI or the banking industry where debt collection is basically automated.
इसकी ना तो ऑडियो समझ में आ रही नहीं वीडियो समझ में आ रहा ये
Right. So, yep. So that's where we are getting towards now. A wide variety of use cases, not just for the enhancing your end user experience, also to boost your employee productivity. Talking about code generation, right? So the demos, couple of demos that I showcased to you just a while ago, all of them were completely built using GenAI, right? With very little code generation or me writing the code by myself, right? So it's a really good skill set to have where you know what tools work the best. How do you leverage these existing tools to build something that's really productive, that's really revolutionizing? And yeah, how can you improve the business operations as well? For example, content moderation, document processing. A really good example is the insurance segment, where they have automated the complete process of claiming the insurance and whatnot, right? And these are some of the use cases that you can definitely look into. And of course, coming to the creativity, it could be as simple as curriculum generation. What are the other colleges doing? Are the other universities doing? How are they revamping their own curriculum? How should I basically inculcate certain concepts or certain techniques or some of these subjects that might not be part of the traditional curriculum? How do I inculcate them into the curriculum so that they can basically you can necessarily use, right? So these are some of the things. So with that, I'm going to live with a thought on how you can definitely leverage GenAI to basically cut it across these different segments. Now, it could be for the tech industry, it could be for just the university, it could be for a completely different industry like a BFSI or a HCLS industry altogether. But to live with a thought on how you can transform whatever you're working on using generative AI, right? So, to summarize, what are the things that we discussed so far in today's session? I know it wasn't the smoothest because we had a lot of operational issues. But what we discussed primarily is the differentiator between artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, generative AI. What do each of these concepts necessarily mean? Then we had a quick demo on different language services or AI services. Then we had a demo on how do you index your own data? How is data your own differentiator? How can you index the data from your own college website onto a LLM so that you can make it much more accurate, right? So we saw some hallucinations when I asked about KIT, and it talked about a certain KIT in Pune, and then basically I indexed the data onto Bedrock on my LLM, and it was able to necessarily pinpoint me to the right information when I asked queries with more context, right? And finally, we also discussed around not just this. Now, what does a traditional ML solution look like, which we looked into some of the uh, computer vision solutions or the problems that we are solving actively, which is one of them is again face matching, right? um, Digiatra is a very good example of how we have sort of revolutionized the entire face matching and simplified the process. So we did take a look at the demo of the end-to-end solution on how Digiatra leverages services such as recognition to necessarily build the end-to-end solution for the to basically tackle one of the critical problem statements of product cataloging or indexing data. We looked into a demo on how you can leverage GenAI to not just catalog the products, but also to do NLP based search, which leverages NLU in the backend, and then also use filter based searches as well, right? So that is something that we looked into. And finally, we are now winding up the session with a thought on what are the different range of use cases that you can think about when you are leveraging GenAI. And the best part of it is you can necessarily build these solutions out again using GenAI, using code generation tools such as Cursor, it could be Emergent, Rocket, and whatnot, right? So, yeah, I think I had just a couple more things, but I think we're right on time. Um, Thanks a lot, everyone. I'm really sorry for the probably the bad experience you had because of a lot of operational issues. But yeah, thanks a lot for being a very patient audience. And any questions, happy to answer if my network allows me.
Uh, Thank you, sir. So,
No.
dear participants, the session is ended. So, I thank you for resource person for providing a wonderful session on AI basic generative AI enables innovations and unlocks new business value for productivity. And he also stated about global alumni builds chatbot assistant to improve student experience. Along with that, Smile and Learn uses GenAI to support real-time translations, also regarding encode and decode architectures. Along with that, recognitions features for face collection features, etc. So the valuable inputs they have given along with the contents. Thank you so much, sir.
No problem. Thank you. Thanks for having.
In any questions from the participants?
Any queries from the participants?
Okay, so for the today's session, sorry for a little bit inconvenience regarding the network issues, and I assure you that from tomorrow onwards there won't be any hurdles in the for upcoming sessions. Thank you. Kindly join with the right time from tomorrow onwards. Thank you all. Kindly fill up the feedback form. Thank you, one and all.